Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Maro Teaches Online. Today we're going to talk about how do we use dimensional analysis to convert units of measure. So let's get started with question number one. So number one says convert 13 feet per second to miles per hour. Okay, so the first thing you do is you set up a fraction. 13 feet for 1 second. So that's what 13 feet per second looks like as a fraction. 13 feet for every 1 second. Now the goal is we want to get it into miles per hour. So first we got to think of how do we get feet into miles? Well, if you look on top, it says that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So we're going to write that as a fraction. Now, you know which one to put on top and which one to put on the bottom based on the previous fraction. So right here, we can see that 13 feet was on top. That means the 5,280 feet have to be on the bottom so that the feet cancel out. The whole goal of this is to cancel out all the units that we don't want so that the only ones remaining are the miles per hour. So 5,280 feet is 1 mile. I'm sorry for the handwriting. This pen is not the best. Okay. And again, we're going to do this at the end, but I'm just going to show you right now. The goal was to get the feet to disappear. So since it's on the top and the bottom, they disappear. So we'll do that in a second. Okay, so we're going to get feet into mile. We did that already. Now we got to get seconds into hours. But before we can do that, let's get seconds into minutes. So we ask ourselves, how many seconds are in 1 minute? And there's 60 seconds in 1 minute. But again, since seconds is on the bottom, we got to put the next seconds on top. So we're going to put the 60 seconds in is 1 minute. Okay, so we're almost in hours, but now we got to get minutes into hours. So we say, well, how many minutes are in an hour? There's 60 minutes in 1 hour. But if minutes is on the bottom now you got to put the 60 minutes on top. So 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if we did this right, we should be able to get rid of all the units except for miles on top and hours on the bottom. So let's see if we did a good job. The feet cancel out. Okay, the seconds cancel out and the minutes cancel out. So if you notice, all that's going to be left is miles on top and hours on the bottom. And then all you got to do is now actually multiply all the fractions to see what you're left with. So let's do that. So if we go to the calculator, fraction, okay. So we had 13 over 1, even though that doesn't really do much, times another fraction. Okay, what else did we have? We had 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So 1 on top and 5,280 feet were on the bottom. Okay, times. Now we got the next fraction, 60 over 1. So another fraction, 60 over 1. And then the last one was 60 over 1 again. So 60 over 1. Okay. Now, let's get it as a decimal. So control enter. So what does it say? 8.86, and it tells us to round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, I did not mean to just cross that off, but here we go. So we're going to round this to the nearest hundredth. So we go to the calculator. 8.863. Well, the 3 doesn't tell me to round up, so we're going to leave it at 8.86. So 8.86, but now we got to write the unit. So we'll make it miles per hour, and that's how you do it. It's definitely tedious to have to do all the fractions, but this is the way to do it. The multiple choice versions are much easier than the part 2 versions. Okay? All right, so we're going to skip around. So let's go to number 3 now. Okay, number 3. Now we're talking about 150 yards per minute. So let's set that up. 150 yards per 1 minute. And we got to get it into feet per day. Now, let's get yards into feet first. Now, the thing is, you can see all the conversions on top, but if you notice, they don't talk about yards and feet. That's because the New York State Regions expects you to know that in your head. So 1 yardstick is 3 feet. So that's something you really should know. So again, the rule is if you see yards on top, now you got to put yards on the bottom. So 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. And again, we put the yard on the bottom so that the yards would be able to cancel out. So if I cross off yards, you're left with feet. That's what we wanted. Okay, now we got to get minutes into days. Well, let's think of how we're going to get there. We can say how many minutes are in an hour and then how many hours are in a day. So let's get minutes into hours first. So again, if minutes is on the bottom, now we got to put minutes on top. 60 minutes is 1 hour. Now the minutes would cross off, but we're still not in days yet. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, how do I get hours into days? Well, there's 24 hours in 1 day. Since hours is in the denominator, we're going to put the next hours on top. 24 hours is equal to 1 day. And again, if you're ever unsure if you did enough fractions, cross off the units if you see it on top and the bottom, and the only ones that should be left is feet should be left on top and days should be left on the bottom. So here we go. Yards cancels out, that's good. Minutes cancel out, that's good. And hours cancel out, and that's great. And the only units I see left is feet on top, days on the bottom. So to save time, I'm going to pause the video and you'll see it all typed out in a second. So watch the magic unfold. Ta-da, technology magic. So let's see what we get when we type it in. Whoopsie. What just glitched? There we go. So it says it's 648,000. So let's write that down. 648,000. And then don't forget to write the units. It's 48,000 feet per day. And remember, you can use that slash for day, sorry. And there it is. All right, let's do one more part 2, and then I'll show you how easy the multiple choice versions are. Okay, so now we got to get from 15 miles per hour, 15 miles for 1 hour. My goodness, this pen's not letting me write. There we go. 15 miles, come on, for 1 hour. Okay, so now we got to think of the plan right now. We got to get miles into inches. So to do that, we need to get miles into feet first, and then we got to get feet into inches. So once again, you look on top, and it tells us that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Okay, so again, if miles is on top, then miles needs to be on the bottom. So 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, so that would get us into feet. We need to get into inches. So now we say, well, how many inches are in a foot? Well, think of your standard ruler. There's 12 inches to 1 foot. So again, if feet are on top, then that foot needs to be on the bottom. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Okay, so if we eliminate all that would be left. The miles would disappear, the feet would disappear, and all we're left with is inches. So that's good. Now we got to get hours into seconds. And if this pen would let me write, I would do it. Okay, so let's get hours into minutes first. If that 1 hour is on the bottom, we got to do the next hours on top. Well, let's see. We have what? 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. Okay, so that would get this into minutes, but we want to get it into seconds. So now let's do it one more time. And remember, minutes is on the bottom, which means we got to put it on top. 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. Okay, so let's see if this will get us the units we want. Miles crosses off, feet cross off, hours crosses off, and minutes cross off. So you ask yourself, what are we left with? On top, I see inches on top, and I see seconds on the bottom. So let's do the power of technology magic again. I'm going to pause the video, and then you'll see all the fractions typed in. Here we go. Ta-da! Science. Okay, so let's type this in. We did, click enter, and it comes out to 264. So let's write that down. The answer is, what color should we use? Blue. 264 inches per second. And that's how you do the part 2s of dimensional analysis. Now the multiple choice are a lot easier. So let's go to number 8. It says the following conversion was done correctly. What were the final units for this conversion? So all you have to do is if you see the units on the bottom and the units on top, give it a cross off. Whatever's left, that's your answer. So you can see hours is on the bottom, hours is on top. Miles is on top, miles is on the bottom. Feet is on top and foot is on the bottom. That's the same thing. So we look at and say, what's left? I see inches on top and I see minutes on the bottom. Now the rule is the numerator always comes first and the denominator always comes second. So since inches is the numerator, that comes first and minutes comes second. So the answer would be D. That is so much easier than the part 2s. And let's do one more multiple choice. Peyton is a sprinter who can run a 40-yard dash in 4.5 seconds. He converts his speed into miles per hour as shown below. Which ratio is incorrectly, something's wrong, incorrectly written to convert his speed? So again, we're going to still cross off the top, cross off the bottom, but you're going to see that something goes weird when we try to cross something else off. So let's see what we can cross off so far. Yards on top, yards on the bottom. I see seconds on the bottom, seconds on top. I see minutes on the bottom, I see minutes on top. Now, if you notice that middle fraction, I haven't been able to cross anything off yet. Now, it's tempting to cross off the feet. I see 3 feet there and 5,280 feet also there. But the reason we can't cross them off is because one has to be on top and one has to be on the bottom. So the answer is going to be this fraction. It should have been reversed. The 5,280 feet should have been on the bottom, so I could have crossed off the feet on top and the feet on the bottom. And that's your answer. So it's been a pleasure teaching you guys like always, and I hope you understood the topic. Bye.